We're following breaking news on the January 6th investigation. The full House of Representatives voting just a little while ago to hold former Trump advisor Steve Bannon in contempt of Congress. Let's go to our congressional correspondent, Ryan Nobles. He's up on Capitol Hill. Ryan, the House just sent the actual criminal referral letter on Bannon to the U.S. Justice Department. Tell us about that.
Yeah, that's right, Wolf. The House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, joined by the chair of the Select Committee, Benny Thompson, signed that criminal contempt referral almost immediately after it was passed by the House of Representatives. And we were told that the clerk had it in the hands of the U.S. Attorney in Washington, D.C. by 5:30 this afternoon. This as the Select Committee continues its quick work to get the information they're looking for.
Thank you very much.
Steve Bannon, a longtime advisor of former President Donald Trump, and the man who predicted this on the day before January 6th.
All hell is going to break loose tomorrow.
Is now in a legal predicament.
The resolution is adopted.
The House of Representatives voting to refer him to the Department of Justice for criminal contempt of Congress because he has refused to comply with the subpoena of the January 6th Select Committee.
If you act deliberately with sneering, cavalier contempt for the American people and their representatives, we will hold you in contempt. We will get to the truth of the violent assault on America.
Do not believe for one moment that if we fail to hold Steve Bannon accountable, that he will be the exception. He will become the rule, not a rule of law, but the misrule of men. Either we are all equal before the law or none of us is. This is the essence of our democracy.
9 Republicans joined Democrats in the contempt vote. One of them, Representative Liz Cheney, criticizing her own party.
Speaker, there are people in this chamber right now who were evacuated with me and with the rest of us on that day during that attack. People who now seem to have forgotten the danger of the moment, the assault on the Constitution, the assault on our Congress.
The vote now triggers a process in the hands of the Department of Justice. They will decide if Bannon's defiance is worthy of prosecution. If convicted, Bannon could face fines and jail time. Attorney General Merrick Garland will have the final call.
The Department of Justice will do what it always does in such circumstances. It will apply the facts and the law and make a decision consistent with the principles of prosecution.
Meanwhile, the committee continues to negotiate with other Trump allies to get them to cooperate with their investigation. They've postponed depositions for former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows and Pentagon official Kash Patel. Dan Scavino, the former Deputy White House Chief of Staff, is now scheduled to appear before the committee on November 4th, as some lawmakers sound the alarm about future elections.
Even now, however, the ex-president and his allies continue to cast doubt on the last election and appear to be drafting a plan to overturn the next one. And next time, we may not be so lucky.
All this while Trump himself continues to peddle false rhetoric about the 2020 election and attempts to whitewash the violence and chaos of January 6th. The insurrection took place on November 3rd. Trump wrote in a statement, January 6th was a protest. And while the committee does want to get as much information as they can from Steve Bannon, they are also using today's vote as a signal to the other people that they've subpoenaed that they will do whatever it takes to get that information. They're still negotiating with Mark Meadows and Kash Patel while they're hoping to hear from Dan Scavino the first week in November. Wolf?
Ryan Nobles up on Capitol Hill. Thank you very much. Let's discuss with a key member of the January 6th Select Committee, Congressman Adam Schiff. He's also the chairman of the House Intelligence Committee, and he's the author of the new bestseller, Midnight in Washington, How We Almost Lost Our Democracy and Still Could. Congressman, what's your message to the vast majority of your Republican colleagues who voted against holding Steve Bannon in contempt?
Well, if they think they can do a carve out here and essentially exempt one of the former president's friends without eviscerating Congress's power of oversight, they're wrong. Either we're all in this together, either the rule of law applies to everyone equally, or we lose out on a fundamental aspect of our democracy, that the rule of law applies to everyone and no one is above that law. So they're undermining their own institution. They're undermining a system of checks and balances. And they're continuing the damage that they did in pushing the big lie about the election.
Republican Congressman Jim Banks scoffed at the idea that Steve Bannon had advanced knowledge of the January 6th attack, saying, and I'm quoting him now, every American knew that violence was a possibility that day. What's your reaction to that?
Well, first of all, if Steve Bannon has nothing to say and nothing to fear, then why is he obstructing Congress and refusing to testify? So let's find out what he knows. I mean, clearly he had a reason to say that he thought all hell was going to break loose when it did. And he was in communication with the president. He may know something about who organized these rallies and what the expectation was in terms of violence, what the participation was going to be among these white nationalist groups. There's one way to find out, and that's to put him under oath at this point. If he doesn't, I hope that the Justice Department will put him in jail.
Well, speaking of the Justice Department, the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, testified today that the Justice Department will apply the facts and the law, his words, to consider your referral to hold Bannon in contempt. If the Department of Justice declines to prosecute him, what would where would that leave your overall investigation?
Well, I think it would be a real body blow. If they do apply the facts to the law, I think it's actually quite simple because Steve Bannon has no absolute right of immunity to somehow just simply fail to show up. He also has, I think, no valid executive privilege claim to assert. And even if he did, he would need to come before the Congress and specify which question, which document the former president was formally asserting privilege. None of that happened. So the facts couldn't be clear. The law also couldn't be clearer. And to me, this is an early test of whether our democracy is recovering. If the Justice Department shrugs and says, we're not going forward, they're inviting other contempt of law by other individuals, not just contempt of Congress, but contempt of the law more generally. And I just don't think that's where the Garland Justice Department wants to go.
How soon will your select committee decide whether to pursue contempt for other witnesses, for example, Mark Meadows, Dan Scavino, or Kash Patel?
As soon as we decide that we're getting nowhere in terms of our discussions with counsel. If we feel that we're merely getting stalled for time, they're playing rope-a-dope with us, we won't hesitate to move forward with a contempt. But if we can work it out and secure their testimony without having to bring up a criminal contempt charge, that is certainly our preference.
Congressman Adam Schiff, thanks so much for joining us.
Thank you, Wolf.